Greetings, nerds. This is CNN Nerd, and I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well, sir. How are you doing this Monday evening?
It's really our 4th year anniversary.
It really is.
4 years?
4 years, yeah. 4 years ago this week, actually, we recorded our first show together.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I actually went back. I actually listened to it. I was doing some things yesterday and catching up on some work and prepping for the day. And then I looked at it, the website, and I was like, wow, January 27th is the first time we actually did a live show together. And I know we did I think you and I and Carrie did one just to you guys like auditioned me, but yeah, you guys like maybe make sure I could actually talk for an hour, but
it's hard.
Yeah, it is. But it's funny just listening to our first show together and then listening to us now. How obviously we it was our first time and there's always the filling each other out kind of thing, sort of like a first date or whatever. But but it was like, but now 4 years later, here we are.
Yeah, for that. Wow. Do you recall what the name of that episode is for our listeners who are just curious?
It's the one with, I think it was the one with Sarah and Will.
Okay.
Yeah. We were talking to Flash because at that time that was really the show I felt most comfortable talking about. Now we go everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agreed to talk Flash only with Will for one time, and then I'm like, we can't do this forever.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that was season 3 of The Flash, and it was we had a lot of talk about Savitar, and then that summer we started branching out to Mr. Robot rewatch and other things, and here we are now.
Yeah, gee.
Yeah.
Time before COVID.
Yeah. We survived it. Yeah, we made it through a year of the pandemic, so
So if listeners, if you found us within the last 4 years and are just curious to hear where it all started, you should go back to that episode and take a listen, because we do grow on this show. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But I think that's just fascinating. And if you've been here since day one, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And on that note, let's just tackle some of these headlines.
Yeah.
Harry Potter. So HBOMax is developing a Harry Potter series, according to the Hollywood Reporter and Variety. But the streaming services says not so fast, according to other sources. Well, duh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They told the Wrap, they're like, no, we have not done anything, and we haven't cast anybody, we haven't gotten writers or anything like that. And I was just like, of course you're gonna say that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, The Rock announced a movie in 2014, and we still haven't gotten it. So I think, I mean, maybe we'll get it this decade or the next, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Harry Potter is interesting because I grew up on the books. My ability to read is because of Harry Potter. I have my whole explanation as to why, and I'm not going to talk about that now, but I'm just saying it's very dear to my heart to an extent. But I will say that they can't just say, we're going to do a Harry Potter show and get me excited, because that story has been told.
Yeah.
It needs to be more, we're going to continue exploring the wizarding world. Mm-hmm. In this way, from this aspect. It's very, I really appreciated SNN's explanation of this. Like, just think Star Wars.
Yeah.
And everybody hates that they for decades continued to go back to the Skywalker well again and again and again, to a point where they basically destroyed it.
Yeah, they did. I mean, a lot. Yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot of bad will out in fandom, because by the time we got to the Rise of Skywalker, people were just done.
Right. So do not repeat that mistake and say, yes, this is going to follow Ginny's and Harry's kids a decade later, and one of them is evil.
Yeah.
Let's not do that, okay? Let's not do that.
To your point about SCN, I know I was listening to them earlier today as well, and they talked about, or maybe it was another show, if they did go into this world, what would be like the Wizarding world be like? I mean, one of the things I liked that they said was, what do you do after you graduate from Hogwarts? I mean, do you have a normal job? Do you, and those types of things. So, and of course, there's a Fantastic Beast spinoff that hasn't captured the imagination in as much as the original series did. I mean, I think the first Fantastic Beast, did it gross $1 billion, or
it made enough to warrant a sequel.
Yeah. But I think
that one did enough to warrant a sequel.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, it's still a very lucrative thing, and of course, HBOMax is looking for content because the traditional networks are really dying off. I mean, at this juncture, I mean, everything's going to be going to these streaming platforms. I mean, you just saw where CBS rebranded their streaming platform, Paramount Plus, and other things. So clearly, this is an opportunity to get people to come back to this well-known IP, and hopefully they'll strike gold with it if and when, more like when, it comes into being, because it's just a matter of time before they officially announce it. But I would definitely be, just like the Star Wars franchise and others, I would definitely check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that my opinion on this news is very similar to when you first told me that they were making a Superman TV show.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's great. I've only heard that story 1,000 times. And we had a perfectly good Superman TV show that ended up getting canceled, and I'm very resentful of that because I miss Krypton dearly.
I do too. To this day.
But now that I've seen the trailer for the show and hearing what they talked about during DC fandom, I get the new take. They're bringing kids on board. Lois and Clark, it's not a fairy tale. It's reality of a marriage and what pressures of financial needs does to marriage. And so I think I really like what I saw in the trailer.
Yep.
I did make a note that cinematography wise, it's very Man of Steel.
Yes. I saw a lot of that commented people over the weekend when the trailer first dropped. Yeah, definitely got Snyder vibes. But also really speaking of the cinematography, they put some money in this thing. Yes,
they did. I agree.
It's got whenever we were watching Stargirl and some of the shows on the old DC Universe app, Doom Patrol and even Titans, with those shows, they really put the budget behind it. And I mean, I felt like when I was watching the Superman and Lois trailer, I felt like I was watching a trailer for a film.
Yeah, it felt like a film. It felt refreshing. Mm-hmm. and just something that, like I said, what we've heard this story before, so you better be doing something different. And yeah. I think they made a point by really saying, no, this is something you haven't seen before. So
yeah.
But it is interesting how CW keeps going back to that well.
Yeah, it is. But tonally, it's like, okay, yes, it's a spinoff from Supergirl era as far as this iteration of Superman, but it feels, I put in my notes, it feels like a grown-up show, it doesn't feel like it's going to be campy. It doesn't feel like it's tonally. It seems that they are shifting away from what we've seen prior in the Arrowverse to Arrowverse 2.0 as the franchise evolves over time.
Oh, well, I wouldn't go that far.
I mean, that's how I felt with it. I mean, that's at least that's the vibe I got in the trailer. Now, whenever we actually see the show, it may be what we're used to, and of course, CW writers' rooms and stuff. That is always the case, and of course, it is from the creators of from the producers of the Flash, and the Flash did start out strong as far as that first couple of seasons. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it may be a one season wonder like the Flash. Which, speaking of the Flash, it was confirmed that Superman and Lois are going to have a 2-hour premiere that we discussed last week, but the Flash is only being pushed back to premiere a week later than originally expected. So
right. Yeah, and also they have a new time as well. They'll be Tuesday nights at 9:00 now Eastern.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
Yeah. So Superman, yeah.
And then also we got the final season trailer for Black Lightning.
Yeah. So Jefferson, Inspector Henderson.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So Jefferson is feeling very guilty about that, and really, this seems the way the third season ended. So they were able to get the Markovians out of Friedland, and Jefferson testified before a congressional hearing about the activities and things that happen with Greenlight, etc. So, I mean, Jefferson seems to be really at a crossroads in this trailer, and he's trying to put his family back together because of all the things that happened to Lynn and to the kids, and so if given that we do know that this is the final season of Black Light, and of course there's going to be the Painkiller spinoff, which looks like it is, they are, I think, filming it now. I saw the script posted on Jordan Calloway's Instagram page. But it definitely seems like crossroads, and we also know that China McClain is not going to be in the series much this season. She's only going to be in a handful of episodes. So I think I'm hopeful that we'll get good closure with this character who, whenever we talked about this show first season in particular, we really liked the refreshing groundedness of it, even though it wasn't a superhero universe, but and it's carried that throughout the series. So I'm hoping they stick the landing, and with the trailer that I saw, I feel like they will.
Yeah, that there was confidence in it, and I think that it's kind of bittersweet because I know that Black Lightning is a really beloved show, and it's still really unclear as to how they came to this decision to cancel it after this year.
Yeah,
but that also means that unlike other shows, they don't beat a horse to death.
That's true. That's a good point that you raised, that you bring up there, because we've seen that with another one of your beloved show, Arrow, where they went couple seasons too long, I think, in some people's opinion.
You say Arrow, I say Flash.
Yeah.
Granted, the Flash is very quick, so it keeps running, and I'm like, well, really? Okay. Oh man, I'm just preparing myself for next month and disappointment. I love the Flash, guys. Just the Flash has become my new, like, now that we're finally getting our shows back, the band is back together. Well,
yep.
I can replace my smack talk about the DCEU with.
Exactly. If you've listened to us for a long time, you'll get used to this. Secretly, she loves it, but she just loves to bust my chops about it every opportunity she can get.
Because Will loves it so much that he makes excuses for it, and I'm over here like, really, you actually paid attention to that part. I fell asleep. And speaking about things where I think we're on the same page with this show. I really do. I think we're on the same page with WandaVision. Mm-hmm. Our page, though, feels as if it's on in a completely different book as everyone else.
Yeah. I feel like we are in a different universe. We're in a different reality bubble than Wanda and everybody else.
I really wish this show had been released all at once. Because it is, I don't know what it is, Will, about it, but there is something about this show where I am not interested in arguably 60% of what happens.
Yeah.
And there are these moments. And granted, this last episode had probably the longest moment that get me really excited. And I'm like, wow, that is really genius with how they're doing that. It's the way they set up their climaxes are great, but I'm still feeling like I don't even know how to explain this. I feel like I'm getting crumbs and I want a full freaking cookie.
Well, you raised a good point last week, and I heard, I think maybe Roxy Stryer and a couple other people, some other podcasts that I listened to as well. And your point, which was, and it really this week really nailed it perfectly. They really should have dropped the first 3 episodes as a bundle, because it is a slow burn, and I get that. And we have watched plenty of shows that have been slow burns, so it's not. So it's not that we're banging on this one just because we're trying to be contrary. But just when the rest of the herd is less like WandaVision's the best thing ever. Yeah. It's not. It's really, you're right. 60. I mean, there is a lot going on, but it also feels like it's one of those things where, yes, there's a lot going on, and all these scenes do have relevance. But I feel like, I don't know if it's because it's the shortness of it's 30-40 minute episode, and people just feel a need to like dissect every little thing because they're just so convinced that it's the House of M, and and I think Feige did allude to the fact that they did get inspiration from the House of M with this show, but it's getting to the point. When I watched this episode this week, I made a note. I was laughing. I did laugh out loud to a few of the sitcom beats because they did work. This week I felt things did work better as far as the sitcom. It did keep my attention the first time around. Obviously, moving into the 70s, you got Parker's Family vibes and a couple, the Brady Bunch house kind of vibe, and so those kind of sitcom moments and those sitcom tropes, like with how Vision reacted to Wanda's water breaking, for example. Yep. Those things worked, and so I did enjoy that third episode. So I felt like if I had those first 3 together as a bundle, I really would have gotten a better taste in my mouth with this series than I have right now.
Yeah, I think it felt more like the end of an act. Like, we've been building to this.
Yeah.
And what happens to Rambeau at the end of the third episode really signifies, yes, there's a lot going on both inside and outside of this bubble of this small town.
Yeah.
There's just something about it where, as much as everything feels like it's working, and I tell myself I should be enjoying watching this show, it still feels like homework.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not sure what's missing. But in regards to this episode, it's all about Wanda suddenly being pregnant. And they are really nailing the commercials, guys.
Yeah.
The commercials are becoming my favorite thing, which never should happen. But we got some Hydra soap. I still can't believe that they didn't whisper Hail Hydra at the end of that. I was really worried. And then we also got something else. I forget what it was, but it was something, and I remember a line saying, "Small towns, so hard to escape."
Yeah.
Which was great. And so there a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of freaking Easter eggs, and too many for me to point out every single one. But I like that. But I want to jump right to my favorite part of the episode, which we were talking previously about how every time Vision kind of gets it in his mind that something is not right here, the show becomes very dark.
Yeah.
And there was a moment in the first episode, a moment in the second episode, and then this episode they did it different, because they had Vision talk to the neighbors and him picking up on that something, and them almost trying to tell him, dude, you have no idea what's really going on here. Things are not right. And simultaneously cutting back and forth with Wanda, who, after the birth of her sons, remembers her brother and the fact that she's a twin. And then Rambo, why the heck would you bring up Ultron?
Yeah. Yeah.
What? That wasn't a part of the sitcom life. Why? Did they not train you? That was like, I don't understand why she went there. I really don't. Maybe it was because she was attempting to try to remind Wanda, like, about her past, like what really she's been through, and it was just too soon. Maybe.
Or, because it gets into this question of who is actually controlling this Vision. Let me not strike that, because I don't want to. Who is controlling this universe that she's in right now? And is it a construct of Wanda? Is it a construct of, I'll go ahead and say it, Mephisto, and because with the birth of these twins, the reason why they are relevant, there's been various iterations in the comics about this, and I mean, I'll freely admit I haven't read the comics, but I did go wiki it, so I could just sort of piece together what's going on, so I can get a deeper appreciation of the show, and so I think one iteration is Tommy and Billy were obviously Vision can't conceive, so can't procreate, so these two were parts of Mephisto, and if I recall, they Wanda had them, and they were a manifestation of from that, and then they later I think they whenever things went sideways, they basically become Wanda does have them again, and then they basically become Wicca and Speedy. I think was it Speedy, who are young Avengers. And so maybe he's controlling that, so he can get her to do because this is, again, it's a magical conception. So that's where he's controlling this simulation, and Monica, not knowing that, makes this innocent comment about Ultron, and then of course that just completely blows things off. But Wanda could also be in some control as well, because earlier in that episode, when she and Vision were having the conversation about the names, and and then Vision, in that other instance, did figure out something was up. She did hit the reset button.
Yep.
So I think multiple people are in control here. So I mean, so one of the things that could be going on in this show is it's a fight for control for whoever is in charge of this particular reality bubble that Wanda's in right now.
Yeah, and then also people wanting to get to Wanda because she is so powerful, and trying to break down the bubble itself and get her out of that state. I think we have some entities. I mean, it is interesting how often Hydra has come up in the commercials.
Yeah, so. Yeah, and also and Strucker, because of course Baron von Strucker was the person who created Wanda to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So so of course you still see the Hydra references all throughout this series because of her creation.
Yeah. I mean, it could also just be some misleads where really the commercials have all these Easter eggs because of Wanda's own memory and her own mind. So like her subconscious is kind of seeping into here and there. Right.
And and also the other moment, I know you had the small towns, so hard to escape. Another thing that stuck out for me was, of course, Vision quoting Shakespeare as far as all the world's a stage. And at the end of that quote, that everyone knows, they have their exits and their entrances. So we're seeing that too, in that that Monica had the entrance into the world at the very, very beginning. When we saw them in the second episode at the magic show in the town, and then of course her exit out of this universe whenever Wanda figured out, put the connections together with the necklace and the helicopter and the beekeeper and realizing that, oh, this is and Wanda, and also Wanda not really, since Infinity War or Ultron, dealing with the death of her brother and also Vision. So so she kicked that out so she can continue to have her positive, idyllic world that she's in right now.
Yeah. So this show, I feel like, has been talked about in development for what feels like a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure we reported this, but I completely forgot that Evan Peters was cast to appear in this show.
Right.
And so knowing that now and having been reminded of that fact,
mm-hmm.
It makes me really excited. And I'm really curious of what they're going to do.
Because he was
him.
Yeah, because he was Quicksilver in the X-Men ones, correct? Yep. Yeah.
The most recent X-Men. The only good thing about the recent X-Men series of films was Quicksilver.
Mm-hmm.
And he debuted. I forget if that movie came out. I think it came out after Ultron.
Okay.
But yeah, everyone, like that scene's iconic in X-Men Days of Future Past. So
yeah.
So it'll be, first, we don't know who he's technically cast as. We can only imagine.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of theories about it, and that gets me excited.
Mm-hmm.
It's sad though that without knowing that information, I'm kind of just like, I can't wait till next week. But knowing that, I'm just like, I just want to know what happens at the end, because it's taking forever to get there.
Yeah, it is. And it's a slow burn. And like I said, I this week, I will say I'm getting closer to being on board with this show now. I'm still, To your point, I do feel like it's a slow burn. It took sometimes. It did take I feel like those first two episodes were good, were some missed opportunities. I mean, if I'm being honest, I mean, as I was last week, I freely admit for the second episode, I fell asleep on it the first time I watched it. So I think there were some missed opportunities there, but I think this week I felt like was a good course correction. And now, as we talk about it more, it's like, this, it's a different take on the MCU that we're used to, and as I said before, I applaud their taking the chance to do this in a quote unquote in a sitcom construct. And yeah, I mean, I did enjoy this week's episode.
Yeah, no, I don't even think it's a course correction. I think I'm going to stand by my statement. In my opinion, for me, this show should have been released all at once.
Okay.
Because I can tell they really are being detail oriented, and this is going someplace.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have followed Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Like half-hour episodes with even Mandalorian were killing me. So I wish it was released all at once. Do it Cobra Kai style.
No.
Oh, I would be so happy.
No, I see. I'm staying in the camp of, even though it's a frustrating slow burn, it's better that it's a week to week show, because even though it's sometimes frustrating, I think that it gives you a chance to really like digest it and really appreciate what's the larger story that's taking place here.
Can we please talk about Batwoman? Because I actually want to talk about Batwoman.
Let's move to Batwoman. I want to talk about. I'm ready to move on to Batwoman as well. Yeah.
All right.
That is still released weekly.
Yeah, I have no problem with Batwoman being released weekly because Batwoman actually uses its time perfectly.
Yeah.
So we got the second episode of Batwoman, which starts off in the most bizarre Alice in Wonderland way.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the difference between WandaVision and Batwoman. With Batwoman, they have a bizarre opening sequence. And then throughout the actual episode, everything ties together. Yeah. All characters are utilized. And by the end of it, the opening makes sense. And you're like, oh, there's a conclusion. It in a way it's villain of the week, mm-hmm. but the way the writers in this show in particular utilize the villain of the week, all of their main characters, I think they're masters.
Yeah.
Like, I love it. I love this week's episode.
I do too.
It was great. I mean,
yeah, I'm there with you. It's so disappointing too. Whenever I see the ratings numbers for this show, that they're just hovering around a little over 600,000 or so views, at least live views. I know they pick up more on the streaming side, but I mean, folks are really missing out on a really good show if they just really give it a chance.
This show has the best CW triangle that CW has ever had. And it's not a love triangle. It's just a triangle. And it's called Mary, Kate, Ryan.
Yeah.
Mary, Alice, Ryan.
Yep.
And last week I kept yelling that there was one moment which just hit me. And it was my Mary moment, because I love Mary. Mm-hmm. And this episode was all about that moment. And I'm mad at us, Will, because we've never said this. But it is really disgusting how much these characters just want Mary to forget that Alice killed her mom.
Yes, it really is.
And she got to yell it at Luke.
Yes, she did. She did. I mean, that you're so right at that. Well, I think it was in the first season, and then maybe if because I think part of this episode probably, I know they had to retool some things, but I think they may have like kept the Desert Rose storyline in the sort of the back half of the first season, because obviously those scenes with the crowd cheering for Batwoman were shot pre-COVID, and Caroline Dries confirmed that those scenes were indeed shot then. So, so I think this was probably the things that they were sort of building towards the end of the first season that they repackaged for the second. And actually, I think it works even better having it now in the second season, because you do get this new triad of Mary, Alice, Ryan, or Mary, Ryan, Alice, and give. And I'm really liking Mary's character so far this season. I know first season I wasn't so enamored with her, but with these first two episodes, really, they've really given Nicole real good stuff to work with, and she is really killing it with whenever she, like you said, I mean, we did miss that point that they tried to just just ignore the fact that Alice killed her mother, but they used it really well in this episode, how they are letting Alice, who's committed all these murders and all this crime and mayhem, just continue to walk through the street, but yet Ryan doesn't get the benefit of the doubt, and of course it mirrors so many things we're seeing in the real world too. Whenever she like busted up the shoplifters at the armed robbery at the store, and they immediately like, oh well, you have a criminal record, so, or you're and just put it on there, you're a black woman. And so and also I like the way that they use Sophie in that role to like to be that authority, that authority figure. So I think it was very smart to do it that way, instead of having it being Jacob Kane or some white officer from the Crows, but use another African American to represent the system in this context, and show how that those that it doesn't, I mean, it's a systemic issue, not necessarily it could be another person looking just like you across from the table, but you're still dealing with those same systemic problems, because that's the filter that Sophie looks at Ryan at. Right
Yeah, that exchange. I know the real reason why Alice isn't dead.
Yeah.
That whole exchange played out perfectly.
Yeah, it did.
It's like, maybe looks can be deceiving on this one. You never know.
Yeah.
But it's just, were we ever told that Alice got Desert Rose from Sophia?
No, I don't
think so.
I don't think so.
I think we didn't hear Sophia mentioned until the second to the last, or the very last episode of the season.
Right.
And Desert Rose was brought up way at the beginning of the first half.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's another thing that they do so well, is we've heard this name Sophia, and we get in the first episode that Sophia's likely the one behind Kate's disappearance.
Mm-hmm.
But I never thought, well, why is she going after Alice? Like, or what's the history here? And then you got Julie Pennyworth's connection to Sophia too. So I like how they're again very brilliantly interweaving all of these different storylines, these perspectives, to present a very cohesive season.
Yeah.
And Luke is no slouch either.
No.
Luke, it's very surprising what they're doing with Luke, because he's dealing with guilt.
Yep.
And also some annoyance that everyone seems okay with Ryan putting on the suit and them just abandoning Kate. And I think it comes from the first episode where he really feels like it was his fault that Kate has disappeared.
Yeah, he feels that Kate's this. I think there's that. There's also he feels that that responsibility. I think of alternate Earth Beth death as well. So he doesn't want to have, now he feels like he's gotten, 2 deaths on his conscience now.
Yeah.
That he's dealing with. So yeah, and so especially, and I thought about that, both of those, both Kate and alternate Beth, whenever he was in the interrogation room with Sophie, and she was, he just again, dug deep a wound as far as like, threw back to her. I can't remember the exact line, but basically like, if you had done a better job of like, keeping, taking care of the people you love and watching people's back, they will still be around, meaning, thinking about Kate and also potentially alternate Beth as well.
Yeah, that was a big plot point last season that I forgot about. And that's another thing that will be interesting if they ever bring up, having met who Beth would have been had certain events not played out the way they did in her life. Both Mary and Luke benefit from knowing that.
Yeah.
And Ryan, they just got her to agree not to kill.
Yeah.
Which it's typical trope, but you can completely see why they're infusing that into this season, especially as Ryan becomes her version of this hero.
Yeah.
It's because that honestly is what she wants. She wants vengeance right now. And she really doesn't understand Alice or why Alice has gotten away with what she has. Which is both a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because it means that she doesn't have any sisterly love that will blind her.
Right.
But it's a bad thing because at the end of the day, that whoever wears the cowl doesn't kill. I mean, it's a moral code.
Yeah.
So I mean, I love what they're doing. I can't speak highly enough of the show. If you're not watching it, you need to watch it. You need to support this because every week I am very amused by what they do and very entertained by it.
Yeah. Speaking of entertaining, I loved whenever they were talking about Brian getting in the suit and there was, Mary, Ryan and Luke there together, and it's like, well, you can do this, and Luke was like, what do you mean, you can't do this, and they're like, yeah, you can. It was like, and he was like, black.
Yeah. Do I have to say it? Do I have to say it? Yeah. And then I like Mary's reaction because she said, well, I think she knows that. Yeah. They both know that.
Yeah, but again, it's just, taking a very obvious moment, but it was a good humor, it was both obvious, but it was also good humor as well. It's just like how well that scene played, and this again, just we talked about this last week about how this show is a real ensemble show, and everybody works really well together. And I feel that there's a definite new energy in the cast that having that change of lead really does, it really does make a difference. I mean, I think it does, and it's showing in the way that the other supporting characters are really doing their work this season.
Because last week we also talked about how Rachel Scarston really outperforms everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, and what it will be like when we finally see her and Javicia go spar.
Yeah.
And we saw it.
Yeah, I was like, I thought of you when I saw that. I was like, I can't say anything. I can't spoil it for Sarah. I was like, you're gonna get your scene like in the second episode.
I'm not gonna judge it yet because this wasn't the scene that you judge acting chops on. No. Just because it was mainly like, oh, who are you? I'm the villain. I'm the hero. Blah blah blah. We're gonna fight.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I still think Rachel just is magnetic with what she's doing, but she also has been playing that character for over a year now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah.
But I do look forward to the day when it's not necessarily Alice versus Batwoman, but Alice versus Ryan, and they have like some moments, like what you were talking about with bringing up arguably one of the best episodes of the first season is when we meet alternate version Beth, and how throughout that episode Rachel just had this way to play off against everyone, and some real authentic moments. So that, and yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm not going to judge it based on Batwoman versus Alice. I want to see it be a true acting moment.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's very fair because it was really. I mean, I like the way it played out, and again, it's like you said, because of just Rachel, just her amazing, her solid acting skills, and Javicia also just like, oh, so here's this moment where I could take out the villain, but in doing so, I win the battle but lose the war, because if I end up taking Alice out, then I end up, to do that, then I have to sacrifice all these other people. So it was a good way of, basically, it was a good way of the story, basically like showing Ryan, it's more than just a cowl.
Yeah, yeah.
And
it's more than even Alice being the sister of Kate. It's that Alice always has a plan. And she's gonna put you in that situation where it's like, okay, you get to kill me, but just so you know, I'm taking Gotham with me. Yep. So I think that's something else I noticed, that in this episode Ryan stressed a lot. I know criminals. I know the way they think. I know I've been around them. And I'm like, we get it. Criminals. We're not talking criminals. We're talking psychopaths. Yeah. We're talking about people who have the ability never to get caught and placed in jail. Like, those are the true masterminds and the true people you're going to be facing. It's not your street level criminals who get caught all the time. Yeah. So I think that she has the chops. Yeah. But I also think she's underestimating the enemy.
Yeah, yeah, and we see that at the very end with Alice and with Tatiana, with Sophia's group, and that really you think Alice is bad. Now we're going to have to deal with Tatiana. We're going to have to. It looks like Victor Sal's going to show up, and then other. Just to your point, it's more than just these street level criminals that you're going to be having to deal with. These are like criminal masterminds who sole goal is to create as much mayhem and why the job that Batman, that Bruce, that Kate, and now Ryan are going to have to deal with. And I love the last little touch at the end of the episode where Ryan did start going through the journals in the Batcave.
Yeah.
To get a better understanding of that, and then and the other thing, the nice little touch I like to add, it was instead of Dear Bruce, they did Dear Kate.
I knew it. I knew they were going to do that.
Yeah.
As soon as she started writing, I was like, Dear Kate.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I'm very grateful that they didn't show Sophia. They showed Tatiana.
Mm-hmm.
Because for a moment I was there, I was like, whoa, this is early. Hold back some.
Yeah.
But no, these writers always have something else up their sleeve. So I think that is it for us tonight. Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me at Will M. Polk, WILLMPOLK.
And you can find me at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at CNN Nerd, friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, but most importantly, rate, subscribe, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.